Hello and welcome back to another episode of this week's watches, and this week we actually have, for the most part, apart from a couple of pieces, a very affordable drop. With the run up to Christmas, we thought why not try and get some more affordable pieces, because I think that's what most people are going to be gifting to people or to themselves. So there's some great options here. We have from a really gorgeous Breitling top time, which we'll take a closer look at, two really interesting Amigas. One I am going to regret selling, as you probably hear me say most episodes. Some really interesting vintage and some modern and some micro brands and everything in between, all at very, very good prices. So I'm excited to bring this drop to you. Now, with Christmas approaching, we are getting to the point where you need to get your orders in soon, otherwise you're not going to get them before Christmas. Now, I will put on screen the exact dates because off the top of my head I can't remember precisely, but I think it's the 22nd of December is the cutoff point for the UK. And again, that is not guaranteed. 22nd is the deadline that the companies are saying themselves, the companies we use for delivery. So I would still recommend before that, because you've got to think of how busy this time of the year is for these delivery companies. So whilst they're saying the 22nd, I would personally guarantee the 20th. I think that's probably safer. And again, it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen weather-wise and all these different things. So please just get your orders in sooner rather than later. Don't leave it to the last minute and put that much pressure on this coming in time for your Christmas gift. It's not a good way to do it. And for pretty much the rest of the world, I believe it's the 16th of December. And again, that I would actually say should be much, much sooner, because there are so many unforeseen circumstances when shipping overseas, especially since Brexit. And especially with different countries and the tax situation and the customs declaration, and some countries like America seem to take forever with their customs. Australia seems to be the worst. So if you're not in the UK and you're considering buying a watch and you want it in time for Christmas, I'd recommend you get it done as soon as possible. So message us if you have any questions on that. And as always, make sure you're following on Instagram at Kibble Watches. We showcase what's coming before it usually hits the website. So you'll see coming soon, and on the profile you'll see a box called coming soon as well, where you can keep up to date with all that. And also it's just good to be following there. We do some Instagram only deals every now and again, especially with Christmas coming up, so keep an eye out on all of that. And if you do have a watch you'd like to sell, get in contact, kibblewatches.co.uk, and you'll see sell. Click on there, nice and simple form, and please answer as much as you can, because otherwise I'm just going to be asking you for that information anyway in my reply email. We'll either buy the watch from you, we'll consign it, or we'll point you in the right direction of where to sell it. We'll try and help you however we can. Now, before we get to the watches on the table, what's on wrist, because I almost always forget this bit. As I'm in the office and I'm shooting this the same day as a Q&A, which will be coming out next week, so keep an eye out for that as of the time you're watching this video. I am wearing the Moser red gold center seconds. Really, really cool watch. And don't forget, we've got two Mosers on the website at the moment. That would be the ultimate Christmas gift for yourself, so go check those out. All right, now let's crack on with what you're here to see, and that is the watches. We're going to start with the Breitling top time. So starting off with this awesome Breitling top time. Now, we've been very fortunate and actually had quite a few Breitling top times over the years, but these cushion case or square cases always do so much better and are so much more desirable. And I think it's just because it's such a good looking watch and it wears so well, and the dimensions really don't do it justice. But this is the reference 2006, and it's from circa 1967. So a lot of people associate this design with the 70s. The watch is certainly not wrong. There's a lot of design from the 70s that's like this. It started in the mid to late 60s, and it's actually very sort of common for these case shapes and this design to be from that period. But a really good looking watch. You can see, if I can get it, there you go, got it in focus. Really, really beautiful design, especially with that bicompax dial, which is where you've got two registers, and you've got the silver of the dial with the black of those sub-dials and the white hands as well in the sub-dials. It just really pops. It adds a different sort of level of sort of tone really to the dial, especially when you're wearing it. Now, it is paired on a original Breitling leather strap. This is definitely a much more modern Breitling leather strap with its buckle, so it is not a vintage one, but it works really well and it just looks really, really good. Now, beating away, and you've probably heard that, that was a nice loud click, really sort of significant in how it feels. It's like bam. But this inside here is a manually wound Valjoux 7730, a very common movement used in the 60s all the way through to the 70s, and even a little bit later, and there's some brands that actually still use it today, like new old stock movements and things like that. I'm thinking of Pinion, they did a limited edition run with the movement in, and quite a few others have, but a very good, very reliable movement. But it's just a really good looking piece, so let's show it on wrist and talk dimensions. And here we go, on my 6 3/4, nearly 7-inch wrist. It looks so good, and it wears so well. This is 36.5mm by 38mm lug to lug, so super short on that lug to lug length. So if you have a tiny wrist, this is going to work really well. If you have a much larger wrist, it's still going to look really good. Only 12.5mm thick, which for a watch of this size just wears really low down to the wrist, and those lugs, they just sort of come straight off the case, so the strap comes straight down. It wears so well. 20mm lug, so again, endless options on straps, but this Breitling one, it works really well, especially with the black and the white stitching. It was made for this watch, really. So go check this one out, and it is a incredible value, really, for how much watch you get, especially with Breitling taking more of an interest in their heritage models as of late. From there to definitely my most favourite watch on the table, the Amiga Seamaster waffle dial. Next up, as I said, we have a watch here that I am definitely going to regret selling once it has sold. This is a super early Amiga Seamaster bumper. Now, we'll get onto all the specs in a second, but this is from 1952, which makes it one of the earliest Seamasters, one of the very early, to the point where it doesn't even have Seamaster on the dial. And it has Seamaster written on the case back right there. And there you go, you can see that nice and in focus. And looking at this case, if you have handled this model before, you will be seeing those chamfers and those edges and knowing that this is unpolished. And the fact that that Seamaster is still as crisp as it is a real testament to that. This is an unpolished example with a waffle dial. So you can see that slight texture, very difficult to capture on camera. Let's see if that comes into focus. There we go, right there. Yeah, you can sort of see that waffle texture. On the website, you'll see it a bit clearer, but very special dial. The reference to this one is 2571. And as I said, it's from circa 1952. And I said it's a bumper, so you're not going to hear this, but you can feel the bumper rotor basically moving around. So before they invented the full ball bearings with a center rotor, there used to be basically like a jackhammer inside that would swing back and forth against a bridge that had 2 springs on either side. So that's what's inside this. This automatic rotor spins and hits this bridge with springs and bounces back and forth. So you do feel it when it's on wrist. I have early days actually had a customer return the watch because he thought it was broken, and it took a bit of education. Now he still loves the watch. So shout out to you. I know you watch the videos. It happens, don't worry. So inside here is the automatic caliber, or bumper automatic caliber 354. As I said, circa 1952. Just a really good example. You will not find them like this, especially at this kind of price point, in this kind of condition. Yes, it is not perfect. It has got scratches and marks, but that's to be expected for 1952. I mean, what is that? That's 70 odd years. I mean, that's mad, and it still works really well. It does also come with its original 1950s Amiga buckle. It's paired on this really nice black strap, and it does come with a Amiga box as well. So you're getting a fair bit with this package at this price, and I do think, if anything, it's a bit undervalued. So I'd say jump on it if that's the kind of thing you're looking for, but let's put it on wrist and talk dimensions. And here we go on wrist. Now, I have said since day one that these Seamasters wear bigger than their dimensions say. So this is about 34.5mm by 42mm lug to lug. But those lugs, as you can see, are quite fat, so it makes it wear bigger. It's also 10mm thick, which is actually quite thin for a watch like this, and 18mm lug, so endless options there with straps. So we've got it paired on this, but you could pair it on whatever you want, and down to that buckle, as long as the buckle fits, you're going to be sorted. So go check this one out on the website and buy it before I change my mind and keep it as a Christmas gift to myself. So head over there now. From one Seamaster to another, we're going to have a look at the Tango, and that's the official name. We're going to call it that, the Tango. Now on to the Tango. This is a Amiga Seamaster from 1956, so also a very early example. And the reason we've called it a Tango is because it can do the tango. No, because the dial has developed that really cool orangey colour. Why? I have no idea. It could be any reason really, but it looks really cool, and it's paired on this really interesting ostrich grain. It's not genuine ostrich, but it's ostrich grain, which I think works really well. A reproduction Amiga buckle. So in the descriptions on the website, we always state if it's an original or a reproduction buckle. We have these reproductions, which just add a nice little flair. We don't charge any extra for it. It's just nice to have on the watch. Obviously, we can put a standard normal buckle on if you'd prefer. And original buckles are going to cost you an additional price, and quite a considerable price if it's a 1950s. So do keep that in mind. Really good example, very nice, very clean. It does have an engraving on the back, which we've decided to keep. Quite a few dealers will get these buffed out, but as you can see, the Seamaster and the waterproof are very crisp. This is getting again close to sort of unpolished. It's not unpolished, probably polished once or twice, but really, really good still. See, it says AJ Coupon. I believe that says, or Cooper, yeah, Coupon, 1958. So this watch is from 1956 based on the serial number, but you can see it was given to someone either as a present or a presentation watch or whatever it may have been in 1958. Inside here is the automatic Amiga Caliber 501, and it's just one good looking watch. I don't think we spoke about reference, so the reference is 2846 or 2848. It has both references on the inner case back. Oftentimes they did this when it was for a different market. So 2846 is the universal reference often, and 2848 would likely be an American reference or German or English, a different reference for a different district or area. That's not always the case, and it might not be the case for this one, but it's what it usually is. But let's show it on wrist, talk dimensions. And here we go on wrist. So pretty much the same as the other Amiga we just looked at, however, slightly smaller. So the other one measures 34.5. This is 34mm, so more in keeping with what they are. 41mm lug to lug and 11.5mm thick. So now we're starting to get to the slightly thicker cases. And 18mm lugs again, so endless options if you're not a fan of this combination. But if you're not, why not? I mean, it looks brilliant. So go check it out on the website and get yourself an absolute bargain for a watch that's ready for Christmas. And the final vintage on the table, a beautiful 9-karat gold Zenith. Next up, we have a gorgeous 9-karat gold Zenith with a really interesting case shape. Now, this one was a presentation watch for someone who had worked at a company, as you can see there, Moeller Products Limited. In 1975, it was given for 25 years service, back when you'd get likely a gold watch for working for a company for that long. Nowadays, you just get a very terrible redundancy package, which is brilliant. So no more gold watches, but this is a really interesting 1973. So you see a theme here. These watches, production-wise and sale-wise, there was quite a few years difference. That wasn't uncommon, you know, at this sort of time period. Watches aren't like they are now. Most of the time, they sell out pretty quick. Whereas back then, definitely not. But a really interesting case shape and quite an unusual one to give us a sort of a presentation watch, right? You wouldn't see this kind of thing often, which makes it that little bit more interesting in my opinion. Beating away inside is a manually wound Zenith Caliber 2562-C. Very reliable, manually wound, sort of higher beat, not a high beat, but a higher beat 28800, as you can see stated proudly there on the dial. Zenith really were proud, and still are today, proud of their movements. Obviously the inventor of the infamous El Primero, but also very good, very reliable calibers across the board, and this is one of them. Now, crown wise, we've kept the crown on here. It is worn down. We can provide a new crown on request. Let us know. That is not a problem at all, and it's paired on this really nice strap. I have no idea where it's from. I do want to know, but it just looks really good. So interesting watch, really good movement, really good condition, and just a great piece for the money. But let's show it on wrist and talk dimensions. And here we go. Now, don't let the dimensions fool you on this. At 33mm by 39.5mm, it sounds like quite a small watch, but as you can see here, it wears really, really well because of that case shape. So everyone always goes on about case size, and I think whilst that's important, lug to lug length is more important, and then again, case shape is also important, so you have to take into account all these factors. But only 9mm thick, so wears super low against the wrist, which is helped by the fact those lugs come straight off the case, as you can see. And 18mm lugs, so again, endless options. You haven't got to worry if you don't like this combination. There are so many options you could have. So go check this one out on the website today. Now from there, let's take a look at some micro brands, and the first one is this awesome Lorenzo. Next up is a brand that I had seen on Instagram, I'd seen sort of out and about, but never actually had in my hands. And you know what? It is one good looking watch, and it is built very, very well. I think for the money, these offer a lot of value, and that's the Lorenzo, and this is specifically the DRZ04. Very good looking watch with that blue integrated bracelet. It's got all the sort of ticks of an integrated sports watch that we now will look for, but done in a really nice way and a very affordable package as well. And the bracelet is built very well, really nice clasp as well, all milled as you'd come to expect, and you can see exhibition case back as well. That's a Sellita SW200-1, but the Elaborate version with Inca block, so they've done some upgrading on there as well. They haven't just taken the Sellita straight out of the factory and said that's enough. They've done a bit more than that, which is nice. And the finishing on the case with the brushing and the polishing that flows all the way to the bracelet, I think is done really, really well, really nicely finished. And again, for the money, I just don't see how you can go wrong with something like this, especially if you're looking for a blue blue integrated watch, but something a little bit different, something that not everyone has got, because this blue, again, isn't your normal blue. It's very almost like, I don't know what you'd call it, like turquoise or something like that. It's got that sort of hint to it. Really, really interesting. Now, this one is from June 2021, and it does come with its full box and paperwork, all links included for the bracelet as well. But yeah, let's show it on wrist and talk dimensions. And here we are on my 6 3/4, nearly 7-inch wrist. It is one good looking watch. Look at that on wrist. So dimensions wise, we're looking at 40 by 48 mil. Very nicely done. Under that 50 mil lug to lug I always go on about. 11 mil thick, and from this point, the integrated part, 14.5 mil, but obviously from this part it's slightly different, and it tapers down slightly to the clasp as well. Overall, really nicely done, wears really well on the wrist, so go check it out and get yourself a nice bargain. Before we go on to another, let's have a look at a classic, this Seiko Sumo. Next up, we actually have a brand new and unworn, as you can see, it's still got stickers on the bracelet and the case and everything like that. This is a Seiko Sumo, which is actually my second favorite of the modern Seiko lineup, and it surprises some people because I've never actually owned one personally, but the Turtle will always be my most favorite, whereas the Sumo comes in second because I think they've absolutely nailed the design, and they've also nailed the wrist ergonomics. And what I mean by that is, on paper, this is 45 millimeters, which sounds absolutely ridiculous. But on wrist, it wears so well. I don't know how Seiko do it, but I don't even bother looking at the dimensions anymore for Seiko. I'd rather try them on first before I decide. But this is a really, really good looking watch. SPB101J1 from October 2021. It does come with its box and papers. And you can see right there, just looks really, really good. Stickers still present. And inside is the automatic caliber 6R35, a very reliable hacking, hand winding, quick set. All the bells and whistles we now come to expect of Seiko, no longer with that terrible 7S26. We can get that out of the way, thank God. But this is a good looking piece. And there's not really an awful lot more to say about it. A nice bracelet, you know, as nice as Seiko come. At the end of the day, Seiko never really anything to talk too highly about bracelet wise, apart from a few models, but you know what, it does the job, it looks good. This looks good on a black rubber, it looks good on a NATO, not that I'm a fan of NATOs personally, but yeah, let's show it on wrist and talk dimensions. So here we go on my wrist, as I've said a million times now, 6 3/4, nearly 7-inch wrist, and it wears really well. Quite hard to capture actually how well that wears, but 45 mil by 51.5 mil lug to lug. Over that 50 mil, I always go on about lug to lug, but the way these lugs are shaped and the way they slope, it wears so, so well. 13 mil thick and 20 mil lug, so quite small lug width really for a watch of this size. Usually that would be 22, but what it's allowed for is these thick lugs that just slope right in towards the bracelet. Beautifully done, and Seiko know what they're doing, especially at this price point. So check it out, save yourself a fair chunk of money buying it new. Even at retail, which always have discounts on, we're even less, so go check it out. Next up, a watch I think is probably arguably the best value on the table, the Sharkmaster 300 from Helsen. Next up, we have a watch I have seen online again and on Instagram, but never actually had in hand properly. This is the Helsen Sharkmaster 300, and everyone knowing, looking at this, will know what it is a homage to, which is the Amiga Seamaster 300, the vintage. And we have been fortunate enough to actually have sold one of those in the past with its original Bakelite bezel, really gorgeous piece. And this really does pay homage in the right way. I think it looks absolutely stunning. to the point where I'm considering some things I shouldn't be. But anyway, let's have a look. So this, as a value package, is incredible. I mean, really well built bracelet, incredible clasp. I mean, look at the size of it. You can see all milled and a slide adjust, as you can see. Nicely done, Helsen. You can see the shark on the back. That's kind of cool, you know. It just all looks very good. Inside here, automatic ETA 2824. So again, not a Sellita. Not there's anything wrong with Sellita, but if you've got the option, I think ETA is just that nicer touch. And a very interesting bezel, which I believe is sapphire inlay, but it gives all that look of a Bakelite. For those of you who don't know, Bakelite is a plastic. It was what they were crazy on in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Actually, I think it phased out by the 60s, or maybe even earlier. Someone will have to correct me on that. No, definitely the 60s. They used it for everything. They made radios with it, boxes, you know, kids' lunch boxes, everything. It was ridiculous, including bezels. Even some watches. I think Tissot did a full Bakelite watch. But they realised pretty soon it is very brittle over time, and it just cracks and falls apart, and it's not very good. So they're quite rare to find watches still with the original Bakelite bezels. So look for this kind of price point, and I just think it's really good. So let's show it on wrist and talk dimensions. And here we go on wrist. Again, it just works. It works really, really well. It's super comfortable. This is 41.5mm by 47mm lug to lug, 13.5mm thick, and 20mm lugs with drilled lug holes. Thank you, Helsen, making it super easy to change out straps. Not that I would. I think if I owned this, I'd probably keep it on this bracelet forever, because that is one good and comfortable bracelet. But what a good looking watch for the money. So head over to the website, buy it quick before I do something silly. So there you go. From there to a brand we seem to get in quite a bit, and it always seems to do really well. Let's take a look at this Yema. So what we have next is another Yema, and this is the Navy Graph Maxi Dial, as it's called, with their in-house movement, which is the caliber Yema 2000, I believe, off the top of my head. And you can see this is really interesting with the maxi dial. So it's the bigger plots and the bigger hands, as they call it. Really, really interesting with the pops of like reddy orange. I mean, I'm not too sure what made them go down this route, but it looks really good. Paired on its original strap, this watch is as close to new as you're going to get, really. Some scratches and marks on the case back, but everywhere else it looks pretty mint, to be honest. Same with like the strap itself. Good looking watch. Dive rotating bezel. You can see it's water resistant. You could actually go diving with this, but not on the brace, on the leather strap, please. It will fall apart. Screw down crown, as I said, in-house movement. So much watch for the money, and I think Yema are doing the right thing with their production at the moment. They're putting a lot of emphasis on the heritage range, and you know, rightfully so. They have such a varied heritage with their models, so why not bring them back? And here we go on wrist. So you can see 13.9mm by 46.5mm, only 12mm thick and 19mm lug, so a bit awkward on that lug size, but still doable. And you can see it's just a good looking watch for the money. I think these are very sort of neutral with that pop of difference, and that reddy orangey colour is definitely that pop of difference. So check it out, save yourself some money on retail and import taxes if you're here in the UK. Closing in on the end, let's take a look at this Hemel with an ST19 movement inside. So the Hemel, and this is a really good looking watch. Again, not for a lot of money at all, especially when you consider you're getting a mechanical chronograph. Now this is the Air League chronograph 2020 edition, and it has, as we flip it over and you can see there, to any of you who sort of know your watches, you'll know straight away that is a Seagull ST19 based on a Venus. I want to say 145, could be wrong on that, but it's definitely a Venus. They bought the rights to it, as did Vostok. They bought some of the parts, machinery back in the day. But really good looking movement, especially for the price. I mean, the screws are definitely like dipped in blue ink rather than properly blued, but I think for the money, you'll be hard pressed to find anything better than these. They're just very, very good for the money. Now design wise, you can see this is based on a blank pan or any sort of early type 20s, I want to say. Again, off the top of my head, so I do apologise if I'm getting some of this wrong. Nice rotating bezel. Just a really good looking watch. You can see we start the chronograph there, give it a bit more of a wind. You've got an inner tachymeter scale, outer bezel, which again, they've done this sort of design to make it almost look like Bakelite. That's because these very early ones were also Bakelite. So nicely done, Hemel. And I think for the price point, it's just really, really good. But let's show it on wrist and talk dimensions. And here we go on wrist. Now this one is from January 2021. It does come with its full box and paperwork. And you can see original strap and buckle as well. It is 42mm by 49mm lug to lug, only 13mm thick, which is quite thin for a chronograph like this, but then again it is manually wound, and 22mm lug, so it makes it wear a little bit bigger than what it is, which for those of you that like a bigger feeling watch on wrist but don't like actually to wear a big watch, this is perfect for you, so go check it out. And last but certainly not least, let's have a look at this Gekkota. So next up is a Gekkota, and this is the G-01 vintage style. Now you can see case wise that cushion case, very sort of synonymous with Panerai, especially this larger size, and the dial is actually sort of reminiscent of a certain model as well, but a very interesting look, Explorer dial with that faux patina, really interesting hands, a design I think is really good looking. Definitely won't be for everyone, but I think it is very, very nice. Now it does come with its original strap, original box and papers as well. Sticker's still on the back there, as you can see. It's been worn a handful of times. I bought it myself actually as a sort of like experiment on this kind of case size for me. I like it, but I don't like it long term, so that's why it is for sale, but a good looking watch nonetheless. Inside is an automatic Seiko NH35. It's from November 2021, and as I said, I was the one who bought it new, so there you go. You're getting yourself a good looking watch for not a lot of money. But let's show it on wrist and talk dimension. And here we go on wrist. So 42mm by 48mm lug to lug. Wears really well for the size. It is 14mm thick and 22mm lug, so endless options there. And you really do get that Panerai look and feel for a fraction of the cost, an absolute bargain. So go check it out. So there you have it, guys and girls. That is this week's drop. A really varied drop and quite an affordable drop as well. Some really good value watches, which we try and always bring you at every price point we can anyway. And don't forget, there are many watches on the website, kibblewatches.co.uk. So if none of these sort of, you know, tickle your fancy, what does that even mean? I'm just going to carry on. Screw it, we're near the end. If none of these watches sort of do it for you, there are plenty on the website. We always have more coming soon as well, so keep an eye out for that. And just messages. If you want to watch sourcing, and especially before Christmas, please do it quick. Do not hesitate and get on that really quick. One final point as well with Christmas. We are going to be in the office all the way up till Christmas. I think the 24th is going to be the day we're not in. So 24th until the new year, we're not going to be in the office. I will still be working for the most part, just from my phone or from the laptop. So if you need anything, let us know. But in terms of shipping, from obviously before that, we talked about the shipping dates, but 24th till probably the 3rd, 4th of January, we will not be here. So when we come back, that's when we'll crack on. You'll be able to come to the office again. We'll get your watches shipped out that you've bought over that period. But I just want to make that very clear. So you guys and girls aren't emailing me expecting to be able to come to the office on the 26th of December. It's not going to happen. So there you have it. Thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Take care.